Hey guys, Iben here. Today I'll be doing something a bit different than usual. So, as you might recall from my trailer, my channel has a clear goal in mind. As for everyone except the 21 people who've actually seen it, I'm basically trying to improve my voice acting skills. Obviously, practice is key to make progress in any profession, but reviewing one's accomplishments can be just as vital. And that's what this video is about. After a full year of weekly uploads, I think it is high time to take a look at what I came up with. For this, I rewatched every video on my channel, from Mean Spirited to Monado Boy, and took notes on my performance in each video. Just the acting though. I already cringed enough without considering my terrible editing, and my horrible writing. And don't you worry, I'll keep this very brief. For now. But if you like, I could go in more detail in later videos. This is obviously just a reflection of myself, but you're more than welcome to share your thoughts or even use this video as a blueprint to analyze yourself. So here's basically the outline for today. I'll concentrate on two key aspects. First, how much have or haven't I improved in terms of voice acting? And second, where does my voice lie and what can I do with it? After that, I'll summarize and conclude a couple of goals for me to work on. And lastly, the outro with a little announcement, so stay tuned for that. Now, without further ado, what the hell did I actually do the last year? To make it a bit easier for myself and not ramble on for an hour, I have noticed that my notes within the first 4 months, the 4 months after that, and the last 4 months varied very little, making this part at least a good deal easier. Now then, going back to the very beginning. So, when I started, I knew I wouldn't be good from the get-go. A fair assumption, considering I didn't really have any experience in that sort of field. But... my blood aches! You're impatient, you hate children. Allow me to demonstrate. You are tough fool! Oh boy, where do you even start? So, the overall acting was just plain bad. Not only did it lack emotion, it sounded downright like I was bored all the time. Whenever I tried to adjust my voice for different characters, it barely made any difference. My attention to articulation was almost non-existent, and I was very quiet back then. In actual fact, I still remember how small the sound waves looked when recording. To compensate, I would usually close the distance between the mic and myself, but... well, aren't you a lovely sight? That definitely backfired. And finally, I spoke too fast, which was probably just because I was too excited. However, that meant I would mess up more often, which meant more excitement, which meant I was speaking even faster. You get the idea. So, in short, I managed to screw up in every way imaginable. Libra's Lesson, voicing Byleth, Magic Castle, and is that a JoJo's reference? Are probably the best examples for how bad I could have been. However, Luigi's Mania, Colin the Cavalry, Giratina's monologue thingy, and the Leon cover were in my opinion the better ones of that time frame, and I can actually still remember the recording sessions I had for each of those. I was also surprised how, quote-unquote, good Mean Spirited was, considering it being my first video, and how bad everything else was the month after that. Also, something I could take away from Magic Castle is that I definitely need more practice reading longer texts, in contrast to dialogues with 1 to 3 lines per character, which I guess I'm doing right now. Moving on to the midpoint. So in my videos between January and April, I noticed that the problems from before were still present. I was too quiet, sounded bored, was too close to the mic again, yada yada yada. However, those problems weren't as frequent or as apparent anymore. So for example, I still was relatively quiet, but not as quiet as the months before. My articulation still wasn't on point all of the time, but more often. My acting was lacking emotion, power or energy, however it was at least present most of the time. Come to think of it, this holding my voice back when trying to be loud actually has some reasons aside from mediocre acting. Mainly that I wanted to avoid echoing, damaging my throat, annoying my neighbors, and most importantly, clipping. For those of you who don't know what clipping is, it's basically that if your audio input is too loud, it ruins your recordings. Because if the sound waves exceed the limit, that part just basically goes missing, and you can hear the difference. I'll still have to look though if it keeps happening to me because my voice isn't trained enough, or if my mic is too sensitive, or both. On the bright side, however, I started to implement pauses when speaking longer lines, and that improved my speaking pace a bit. Also, my voice variety got a bit better, but there were a couple of instances where I looked back and thought, that voice doesn't suit them. Why did I give them that voice again? I have you this time, Lelouch. There's a hot spring structure in the Ether Resort, and while there was some genuine progress, there were some performances that I consider to be even worse than in the September to December period. In case you haven't noticed, the scouts are closing in! And also some mixed bags with takes I really liked, and others I didn't like so much. Pikachu! But despite all that, my average went up. And there have been some videos in this period too that I am really proud of. Something I could take away from various videos is that I enjoy doing animal-esque voices, weird voices, and voices that aren't quite my everyday voice. And I'd like to experiment more with that in the future. And I know I already mentioned this, but in my Link vs Ganondorf cover, I could really notice how much I struggled with continuous effort and injury sounds that A, don't cause clipping, but B, still sound authentic, while C, not damaging my own voice. Also, as a side note, is it just me or did I literally sound like Link in some of those takes? And ultimately, Phase 3. Here again I noticed overall improvement. I'm rarely too close to the mic anymore, pay better attention to articulation, sound less bored, and when I'm too quiet, I'm at least understandable. My acting in general became a good deal better too, considering I could hear some actual emotions this time around. Don't eat all my precious fruit! On top of that, I seem to have gained confidence over time. That was most apparent to me because I started to hear some energy or power. And looking back, I think I was a good deal calmer in my latest recording sessions. There were still scenarios where I really messed up like that. What is it with me and bad videos on JoJo's? Anyway, on average it's acceptable, and with another year of practice might start to get more consistent. Speaking of consistent, I was overall more satisfied with voices I did for characters, even in retrospect, and I had the chance to polish previous characters in terms of voice and performance. Where did I go wrong? Oh, that looks refreshing. Let's kill it! Everyone, make a run for it! Whether I look it or not, I'm rather surprised. I only became aware of it when I was fighting hard against you. Lastly, I want to talk about this video. I consider this to be my biggest success yet, because it feels like I was actually having a conversation. And not only that, I even paid attention to what emotions both characters have or don't have, how they change over time, and how they react to each other. On top of that, I also had a lot of fun dubbing something where I had to pay attention to lip flaps. It's just that sometimes it's hard to tell what you're thinking. Like you get distracted by something from time to time. Almost like you're talking to someone else, inside your head. That being said, it was a long process doing this on my own. I mean, it literally took me over 2 hours to record 15 minutes of dialogue. And even after that, I still had to check afterwards if I was really in sync with the characters. So, if I ever do something like this again, I'll definitely get someone else to at least give me some directions. Something else I realized was that 2-hour recording sessions are really exhausting. and I'll have to continue practicing long sessions to get at least somewhat used to those. Okay, so I've talked a bit about my voice and character voices, but where is my voice to begin with? Well, first and foremost, personality traits are the best place to start looking. It is a good deal easier to act in a situation as yourself or someone like you instead of rethinking over and over again what person X would do in situation Y. In my case, I would describe myself as level-headed, rational and observing, but also sincere, friendly and quite modest, and occasionally even sarcastic and somewhat of a comedian. I don't like to bother other people and have problems communicating, which can make me look shy and timid. Moving on to my voice, it reflects a lot of my personality. Others, as well as myself, have used words like calm, grounded and relaxed to describe it. Also, I am very consistent with my articulation and tone, which really underlines the cold and rational aspect of me. To identify my voice a bit better, I also looked at my longer videos to see which characters would best fit to me. The reason I only looked at those for my evaluation is that they have enough material to work with. However, here are some of the characters I did in comic dubs, for example, that could work out, but I haven't got enough on them to make a final statement. So basically, honorable mentions if you like. So, to make it a bit more manageable, I did this in a tier list format. Just as disclaimer, this is just the voice I gave each character that I'm evaluating, not their respective performance. If that were the case, none would have gotten any further than 8. So, starting off with Jotaro, I honestly have no idea why I even bothered trying him out. His character doesn't fit to me or my voice, apart from being level-headed. Definitely the worst as of now. Now Ganondorf, Ian and Clive have this problem that they could work out, but there still is some key aspect to them that doesn't quite click yet. Otto and Leaf have the same problem, but it's a bit more manageable than the other three. With Arthur, Jonathan, Forsyth and Berthold, things start to look better. They still require polishing, but the foundation is not bad at least. Chess, Eld, Alphonse and Joseph were simply put, okay. Definitely not bad, but I wouldn't say that any of them stood out in any way either. Moving on to tier 9, these gens basically fulfilled my expectations. Frere, Leon, Lucas and Shulk all have their unique take to my voice that makes them all stand out a little, and Python's sassiness was just too good to not be up there. Lastly, we move to the two who blew my expectations. As I mentioned, there were points while recording where I wasn't sure if I was hearing my own voice or Link's voice. As for Byleth, I'm pretty sure he has become a persona of mine at some point. If at any time Fire Emblem games get translated to German for real, you'd better believe that I'll show up to castings for him. At this point, I'd also like to point out that out of my personal top 5, 3 of them are characters I can identify as. So what have I gained over the last year? Well, for one, I started off with a lot of problems, like my talking pace and voice volume, that I got to work on and improve over time, with still plenty room to spare. I got to try out a bunch of different characters and have a good idea of my voice qualities, and most importantly, I had lots of fun doing this. But time is key. It takes a long time to perfect or even solidify a skill. On that note, I still need to further expand my knowledge and understanding of acting. I also need to practice doing longer texts and long sessions in order to not get overwhelmed by those in the future. Then I'd also like to capitalize on my voice and character qualities and furthermore experiment outside of my comfort zone. I have to start letting loose to find my true limits and maybe even expand them if possible. Okay, so I think I have talked long enough. What are your thoughts on my analysis? Or was it helpful for you to evaluate yourself? And would you be more interested in more educational stuff like this? Please let me know in the comments. I know I sounded hypercritical on myself, but I really am happy of the journey I had until now. As for my announcement, in about a week from now, I will be taking actual classes in voice acting. That means I get to apply my goals professionally, while probably learning other things along the way I haven't even considered yet. And on top of that, I should have access to a better recording booth than my own, so hopefully there'll be some major improvement in the audio quality. Yay! Okay, I think I've taken enough of your time now. So, with that being said, I will see you next on... Ooh, piece of candy.